I'd like to thank Retroid Interactive for providing a free review copy of Wunderling. Wunderling is an extremely simple 2D platformer that only needs 2 buttons at minimum, and your character runs automatically, so there isn't even directional controls. It's the kind of game you would typically play casually on your phone and not give a whole lot of thought. But to my surprise, this isn't some shovelware quick cash grab kind of game. There's a lot of charm here and real effort put into this. I'll say up front that there is way better competition out there, like Celeste for example. But don't snooze on Wunderling just because it appears basic. There's a bit more to this one than it initially seems. The story is a parody of classic video game tropes, specifically Super Mario Bros. It opens with our hero Carrot Man on a quest to rescue Princess P. He reaches the flagpole to finish the first level, at which point the villainous witch Kohlrabi revives a low-level minion to give chase. Thus is the basic premise. The player controls this minion throughout various levels to catch up to Carrot Man and defeat him. Perhaps the most shocking and completely unnecessary part of this game is that it's actually well written. Much of the humor takes jabs at the video game industry, and Nintendo in particular. Like when wall jumps are introduced, Dash the Cow has a hard time giving you an example without getting sued. A favorite of mine is during the game's opening. If you choose not to jump through the portal right away, then Kohlrabi gets annoyed before eventually stopping you to ask, "What are you waiting for, Mother 3?" And Carrot Man wishes to assure Princess P that there's no pressure to date him after being rescued. Because, after all, it is current year. He says, "Who knows what I could be into? It's up to you!" The writing in this game is so strange and ridiculous. However, it is subdued just enough to not go into total non sequitur territory, where everything is so random to the point of absurdity. The story is also complemented by these unlockable diary entries by Princess P, which essentially act as backstory and explanation of the world's lore. These walls of text are brief enough to not be overwhelming while still providing some interesting insight. And it gets pretty dark in the later half, especially the game's ending, which totally betrays the otherwise cutesy aesthetic. While you shouldn't get this game for the story, I do think the writing is pretty damn good and it should hook most players in. Another note I should bring up is that the game looks beautiful. It's not the best looking 16 or 32-bit game out there, not by a long shot, but for a low-budget indie game, this looks really good. Even the later environments that have duller backgrounds still have a lot of nice little details in them, like these robotic mice that are scurrying around. As for the music, that's a little bit of a low point. It's not bad by any means, and I appreciate that it stays pretty quiet and it takes a while for a song to loop, so it never gets annoying. However, it's nothing special either. The gameplay's gimmick is that you can't stop running, and if you hit a wall, then you simply turn around. With well-timed jumps, the player can avoid obstacles and reach the end of the level, collecting flowers along the way, which are necessary to survive. The player is on a constant timer, and going for too long without collecting sufficient flowers will result in death. Because, as Dash the Cow puts it, dark magic is one heck of a drug. At first, this just seems like a mechanic to test the player's jumping accuracy, but it soon becomes a challenge for backtracking as well. The player needs to make sure that they leave enough flowers behind for stages that have you go back and forth, and avoiding flowers tends to be more difficult than picking them up. It's a simple kind of challenge, but very effective. Early on, the game comes across as way too easy, and I quickly got bored of it. Those first few levels are too basic for their own good. Eventually though, new abilities are unlocked that help deepen the gameplay, including a wall jump, ground dash, air dash, and a couple of other things. This is complemented by the excellent momentum-based physics, allowing things like bunny hopping and quick wall jumps to help maintain speed. There's a really good foundation here, but unfortunately, it never feels like the game's mechanics are quite taken to their limit. There is a ton of variety in the obstacle layouts and general level design, but I never felt fully challenged. Certainly not in the same way that Celeste or Super Meat Boy would really push me. That's not to say that Wunderling is entirely easy per se. It does have that typical modern platformer game design where you have to thread a needle between spikes on all sides. However, Wunderling is the kind of game that young children should be able to get through with enough attempts. But, just like the Kirby's Dream Land games, the real challenge lies in 100% completion. Finding all the hidden treasure was a lot of fun, partially thanks to how short and easily repeatable the levels are. And none of the secrets are so well hidden as to require a guide. Simply observe the environment carefully, experiment, and do your due diligence. I was able to find everything in the game with relative ease in about 8.5 hours. And if you were to ignore that stuff and simply stick with normal progression, then I'm sure it can be easily finished in just 4 hours or even less. Despite having a total of 109 levels, most of them are pretty easy to get through, so it's not the longest lasting game. I'm also not happy about the game's trailer teasing me about becoming a giant awesome boss, only to find out that it's just for the cutscenes, which was a huge disappointment. They didn't necessarily have to do a whole lot here, but at least give me something. The game's ending too will no doubt be incredibly disappointing for most people. For me, I liked it. It took me by complete surprise and it's really dark, especially when you couple it with the diary entries. But the ending does occur very subtly and isn't all that satisfying, which is a shame. I also want to bring up a particularly annoying glitch. The game's controls can be remapped, which is highly appreciated. However, they need to be remapped again each time the game is shut down, at least for the Nintendo Switch version. This is pretty inexcusable and obviously an unintended oversight. It's not game-breaking by any means, but it is a shame to see this one slip through the cracks when the rest of the game is pretty top-notch. Wunderling sits at a bit of a crossroads for me. While it is very fun, it's also too easy, too simple, and too short. However, I'm not going to deny the effort that was put forth in this game. The artwork is great, and the writing is both funny and engaging. The physics, level design, and general variety in the game are all rock solid. But sadly, it's just not enough. There's no reason to choose this game over similar platformers. But, if you're looking for something new, Wunderling's not bad at all. I think $15 might be a little bit too high, but it's still worth looking into if this is the style of game you like. I would once again like to thank Retroid for the free review copy, and thank you for watching my review on Wunderling. It's really nice to get a review copy and have it not be total garbage for once.